I hope some of us understand or know what is shown in the image. This is a library catalog. This is the analog version of Google. Back in the day, researchers would go to libraries, university libraries, and they would go through these library catalogs. And in these catalogs, you will have drawers, and in every drawer, you will have index cards, and you'll go through those index cards to find out any relevant materials for your research purposes or your research topic. And then you would physically go to a shelf in the library, and then you would take out that journal, a copy of a journal or a book, and then you would go to your office or home or wherever, and then you would read that. You can see that this process involves a lot of time and labor. What has happened over the last 20 to 25 years, especially, is that we no longer do this. We no longer there are I think there are at least two generations of undergraduates or PhD students who do not even know how to use this, and it's not their fault at all. It's not. It's a very specialized skill. But back in the day, at least 30 years ago, people were trained how to use library catalogs. These days, we are much more likely to do something like this. We will not go and we'll probably do something like this. We'll go to Google Scholar, or we'll go to, say, PubMed, and we'll look up relevant materials here. Yeah, we'll look up something like how does social media affect mental health. We are going to okay, there is a pop-up here. Okay, sorry, there's something wrong. Okay, so we are going to so what we'll do is we'll go to Google Scholar, or we'll go to PubMed and look up results there instead of going to a physical library like this. We'll not do that. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that over time, what has happened is that we've learned, or we've built tools to outsource our labor to these online tools or digital tools, while keeping the thinking to ourselves. So, for example, we don't do this. Sorry, we don't do this. We don't go to Google Scholar, say here. We don't go to Google Scholar, and we don't ask Google Scholar, what should I research? We don't do that. That's not a very productive use of Google Scholar. What we want to do is we want to come up with an idea ourselves, and then we want to look up literature using Google Scholar or PubMed or our university's online library. Yeah. So the thing that we need to keep in mind is that it has not happened in a year or two or in a day or two. It has taken us 2 decades to develop these, what I would call intuitions. Now it seems very intuitive to go to Google Scholar and not to this, library catalog. So using Google Scholar or using PubMed or using your university's online library or any digital tool has become sort of intuitive. It was not intuitive 30 years ago. If we understand this part of this distinction between our academic work, between academic labor and thinking, then we can use this distinction and extrapolate it to AI. We can use this exact distinction and take it to AI and see how we can outsource our labor to AI while keeping the thinking to ourselves. So this is the first and the most important thing that we need to do, is we need to we need to learn how to outsource only our labor to AI, but not thinking. We don't want AI to think for us. AI cannot think. AI can help us think, but it cannot think on its own. Similarly, it's just like Google Scholar cannot do research on itself, by itself, but Google Scholar can help us conduct research. I hope that makes sense. So this is the most important thing that we are going to learn, or we are going to have to wrap our heads around. The second important thing, or the second point that I usually share with colleagues, is that we need to learn to use AI for structure and not content. We don't want to generate content with AI. And the problem with AI content is that generative AI models, have been trained on human generated text, and they are predictive in nature. So an AI app like ChatGPT will always produce predictable text. And we don't want predictable text, because predictable text will have no new insights, no new knowledge. And what we want to do is we want to have new knowledge, we want to create new knowledge, we want to produce and offer new insights. We want to make some kind of original contribution to to our field of research. Yeah. So AI, but on the other hand, let's say if I have to submit a paper to Nature or Lancet or any other journal for that matter, if I write to that journal's editor and I say, "Hey, I'm going to write this paper, and this time I'm trying to be really creative, and I would like to write this paper in the form of, I don't know, my Shakespearean sonnet or a rap song, or I don't know, Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale." My paper would not get accepted because the editor would tell me that they have a very specific method or structure of a research paper in which every research paper has to be published, because that's the way they can disseminate and communicate science. So if we use AI for structuring our papers or our thoughts or formatting, that's fine as long as we're not creating content. Because if you're creating content, then we are going to end up on a sticky wicket, because that's going to cause us a bunch of problems. The chief problem among them is the hallucinations, because if you're generating content with AI, uh, people who generate content with AI more often than not do not even read the content that has been generated. And if there are any hallucinations, then it's your responsibility. You will not be able to say that it's a mistake that ChatGPT made. No, it's a mistake that you made. The third point is we need to learn AI to use as a research. We need to treat AI as a research assistant and not a research supervisor. And in the latter half of this presentation, what we'll do is we'll learn how to use SciSpace and SciSpace Agent as our research assistant. How SciSpace Agent and SciSpace in general can help us outsource a lot of academic labor. Yeah, that's what we are going to do. Now, the uh, I've created for myself a mental model to interact with AI apps. What I usually do is I treat every AI app as a smart, willing, eager to learn undergraduate student. Now, this student has a lot of potential. I can outsource a lot of work to this student, but this student cannot think on themselves for themselves. Yeah, this student still needs my guidance. Yeah, it's not an actual undergraduate student, but it's just that I have created this persona of an undergraduate student that helps me have a productive relationship with that AI app. So if your student researcher or your research assistant gives you something, completes a task for you, let's say you give them 5 papers and you ask them to, hey, go and read these 5 papers and give me their summaries. And if your research assistant gives you those summaries, you will not just simply copy and paste them and put them in the research paper that your manuscript that you're writing. You will never do that, because at the end of the day, it's your name that's going to be on the paper, and you want to be 100% sure about everything that goes into it. Yeah. So we are going to treat SciSpace and every other AI app as our research assistants. The fourth point, and this is probably the most important point, please don't over rely on AI. There is a it's a very slippery slope, because people would try to over rely on AI and then they would forget to use their common sense. And please, for the love of God, or for the love of, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. If for the love of any deity that you believe in, or for the love of anything good that you believe in, please do not forget to use your common sense. Yeah, that is very, very important. Please do not forget to use your common sense. I wish I could make people print this out and paste it on their computers or on their printers somewhere, so that it's right in front of them. It's very, very important not to forget to use our common sense, because I tell you what, people have forgotten to use their common sense, and that has resulted in huge disasters and embarrassment. So here is an example of people forgetting to use their common sense. This gentleman's name is Stephen Schwartz, and he last year, in 2023, not last year, in 2023, when ChatGPT was fairly new, he used ChatGPT to look up citations for a case that he was defending. he was working. I think he was working on some case, and he asked ChatGPT for some citations, and ChatGPT cooked up fake citations, but they were so good for his argument that he got so excited and he asked ChatGPT for full length reports to those citations. And once again, ChatGPT complied. It generated fake reports to those fake citations, and Stephen Schwartz was so thrilled that he printed out that bundle of fakery and submitted that in a court of law. And the judge was, let's just say that the judge was not very happy. Stephen Schwartz ended up getting sanctioned and fined $5,000. Now, if you just go on Google and run this ChatGPT lawyer, if you just run this search, this gentleman's face would pop up. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be associated with something like this. Yeah. The second example of people forgetting to use their common sense is this. This is much closer to our profession of teaching and learning. Professor Jared Mum of Texas A&M, again, this was in 2023, he suspected that his students were cheating with the help of ChatGPT, and then he failed his whole class. And at the time, many of his students, ChatGPT was fairly new, and many of his students didn't even know about ChatGPT's existence. So when he suspected, he sent them this email. He said that in grading your last three assignments, I have opened my account for ChatGTP. He's not even sure about the name of the app yet. I copy and paste your responses in this account, and ChatGTP will tell me if the program generated the content. I put everyone's last three assignments through two separate times. Now, the problem is that this gentleman, this professor with a PhD, has no idea what ChatGPT is. He thinks, or he wrongly assumes, that ChatGPT is a plagiarism checker, which it is not. ChatGPT is just a generative AI. It's an app that generates predictable text. That's about it. It cannot do anything more than that. Fundamentally, it's not a plagiarism checker. So this gentleman, Professor Jared Mum, he ran everybody's assignments through ChatGPT and then failed the whole class. Now, this would have been not that big of a deal had the students not already graduated. Now, all of his students had already graduated and they could not get their diplomas just because Professor Jared Mum had decided to be cute. So this is something I see that from the poll, we can see that around 50% of us attending this webinar today are academics and faculty. So please don't do this. Please don't run your student assignment through an AI app to see if it's AI generated. There is no AI detector that can, with 100% certainty, tell you that this is AI generated text. Yeah. So this would do a lot of disservice to your students. The third and the final example of academics forgetting to use their common sense is this example of three scientists who published a paper in this journal called Frontiers in Cell Biology, uh, Frontiers in Cell and Developmental Biology. And they published this paper last year in February, and they used this AI image of a rat with a huge penis and testicles. And this became a huge scandal, and every major academic publication and popular publication, wrote about it. So much so that it ended up on Stephen Colbert's late night show. So if you spend any amount of time on social media, especially on Twitter or X these days, or LinkedIn, you will come across two extreme views about AI. On the one hand, there are proponents of AI who think that AI is going to solve all our problems, it's going to cure all the diseases. We're going to have a button that we're just going to press, and AI will give us a totally original research paper. We'll submit it to Nature, they will publish it, we'll get tenure, and then we'll go to the beach and chillax. That's not going to happen. That is just a fantasy. Yeah, that's not going to happen. We still have to research, we still have to work. On the other end of the spectrum are people who think that in a year or two, or by the end of this year, we'll be ruled by AI overlords and robots will be, taking over the world. And this is the problem. Both of these extreme views are totally, completely, and utterly useless for our purposes as academics. We don't want to entertain these views. What we want to do is we want to learn how to use these tools, and we want to understand what these tools are. These tools are tools. So, my excuse me, my favorite example in this regard is that of a hammer. A hammer is a simple tool. It's a manual tool. There's no AI. If I know how to use the tool, I will be able to build furniture, do house chores around my apartment, and so on and so forth. But if I don't know to use a simple tool a tool as simple as hammer, I won't be able to do anything. I may end up hurting my own fingers, and that has happened in the past. So we don't want to do we don't want to misuse the tools, and we don't want to forget our common sense while we use AI. Yeah, I hope this makes sense to colleagues listening and watching. Okay, so with that said, now we'll jump into how to use SciSpace to outsource our labor. Now, the most important thing that generative AI has enabled us to do is what I call semantic search. So let me give you an example. Let me give you this example here. So let's say we go to Google Scholar and we'll run a search. If I run this search, how does social media affect mental health? The limitation of Google Scholar is that it doesn't understand the meaning of my question. Yeah, it can take the words in my question or query, and then it can take these individual words and match these words against the words in its database. So you can see this social media is highlighted, mental illness is highlighted because it's related to mental health. So this is a bit of semantic adjacency, a bit of semantic search we can understand, because mental health and mental illness are not exact same words, but they are quite close. So it can understand this much related words, but not more than this. It doesn't understand the meaning of our question, and that's the limitation. Similar is the case with the database like PubMed. Now with generative AI, and of course we can run a search, download these papers, and read through these papers and synthesize all this available information for ourselves. We've been doing this. This is the way we were taught, and we've been doing this, for the last, I don't know, several decades. What generative AI has enabled us to do is to conduct or run semantic searches. So generative AI apps like SciSpace, especially SciSpace, what it has done is, think of SciSpace as a generative AI app. Think of ChatGPT, and then think of academic databases. So you have ChatGPT and you have an academic database like Google Scholar, and you marry the two together, and then then the resulting product is what SciSpace is. So if I run a search, let's run a simple search here. If I run this search that I have run in Google Scholar, if I run here, you will see that SciSpace can understand the meaning of my question. And not just that. So I've run this question and this search in SciSpace Agent, and you will see how SciSpace Agent starts acting as my research assistant. So it has initialized a comprehensive search plan for my question, and now what it is doing is this. It will show me whatever it's doing. It has started looking up through relevant papers, and you can follow the process, its thought process. Sorry to anthropomorphize it, but you can see the kind of the breakdown of the process that it's following. So run it has looked up 100 results in SciSpace own database, then Google Scholar, PubMed, then archive, then it's merging and ranking search results, and you can see all the papers that it's using, 120 papers. And then it is extracting insights. So what is it is doing is it understands the meaning of my question, then goes to databases and looks up relevant papers there, finds those relevant papers, then reads their abstracts. Then, and in some cases, I'm not sure if it reads full text, but it reads this, I'm sure that it reads their abstracts. And then, based on those abstracts, it compiles a result that is in narrative prose. You can see here, this is the question. Sorry, this is the answer. So here it is. How does social media affect mental health? Social media has both benefits and harms, with effects shaped by how, when, and why people use platforms, main effects on mental health, so on and so forth. Now, unlike ChatGPT, what SciSpace Agent does is that it not only gives you an answer in narrative prose, but it also cites, it gives you an answer with reference to actually published papers, which you can see here and in here. So all these footnotes, if you hover your cursor here, you will see that this is a paper that is an actually published paper. This is not a fake hallucinated reference. Yeah. So in here, SciSpace Agent will show you the paper, then its short summary, summary of the abstract, TLDR, and then of course the total abstract. Let me do this, the complete abstract of the paper. And then you can also ask SciSpace Agent, you can also ask it to explain the paper, explain the abstract of the paper. So you see how it is acting as your research assistant. It is not doing the work for you, but it is helping how you can interact with published literature. And this is one of the biggest, I think, achievements of generative AI, that it has enabled us to run these complex semantic searches. And there's a huge amount of academic data or research papers or literature that we need to go through, and SciSpace helps us do that. So let's do this. I'll show you, not maybe AI agent for this paper, but if I click on explain abstract of this paper, SciSpace Agent will start scanning the literature, and then it will explain the abstract of this paper for me. And then what I can do is I can read this, and then I can ask the questions here also. So I can say, does this paper mention Twitter? Something like this. Instead of downloading the paper and then doing a control F search, I can simply type in a question here and it says, no, the provided text of the paper does not mention Twitter. Yeah, very easy search. Then this is very convenient. If you are working on something related to Twitter and you come across this paper, you can simply ask, hey, does this paper mention Twitter? No, you can forget about it and move on to the next one. And then the other thing which I found quite helpful is you can use you can translate this to any of these languages. This is like, I think, 70 plus languages. So you can ask questions in your language. If you're not a native speaker of English, just like me, if you're not a native speaker of English, you can ask the questions in your language and it will reply in your language, in the selected language. That's a huge plus for a lot of people whose first language is not English. But let's say what you want to do is you have run this search and maybe you found this paper to be very relevant and you want to read the whole paper. Now, instead of doing this, you can, of course, do this and copy the title and then go here and then run this search. You can do this and then look this up and do a few more clicks and, so on and so forth. But this is a very recent feature. Deepak just told me, I think yesterday, what folks at SciSpace have done, and this is such a neat feature. I'm really impressed with this. If you click here on PDF, it will go to my university's library and then it will give me that paper automatically. You can see how it's doing. See, I have the paper in 2 clicks. So how this works is, what I've done here is, I have installed this Chrome extension. So there is this Chrome extension, SciSpace. I have installed this in my Chrome browser, and then I have signed into my university's library. So I've signed into my University of Southern Denmark's library, and now that is integrated with libkey, and I can do this very easily from here. It just takes one click. Instead of typing this here, copying and pasting, and then looking up on the internet, and then downloading that PDF, and then realizing, oh, I need to go to my university's library and then download from there. It's like 3 to 4, 5 minutes of work that you can easily outsource here just by clicking on PDF. If that is not available, I think it will also let me run another search. It also gives you, it's checking availability, get PDF, download from library. So in this case, this particular PDF is not available from any of my institution's libraries. So I won't be able to get it from here, but I can request PDF from authors in that case. So I hope you see the point that I'm trying to make. This is one thing, that it lets us conduct semantic searches, and then it answers our questions with reference to published papers. Now, how do we understand this text that it has created or generated for us? What I usually do when I run these searches, I read through this text as if I'm reading a Wikipedia article on a given topic. Now, Wikipedia articles are not original research, but they are very well synthesized, pieces of writing. So this is a very well synthesized piece of writing. It's not original research. There is no argument here. Yeah, it's not taking any position. It cannot take any position because it cannot construct an argument, but it can synthesize a lot of information in a very short amount of time for us. Yeah. So that's a huge plus, and that's a totally different way of interacting with published literature. Now, what I don't want to do is, I can read through this and get the lay of the land, and get to know what the effects of social media on mental health are generally. What I don't want to do is, I don't want to copy this and copy this, open a Word document, and then I don't want to do this. Paste it here and then go all the way up. Mental effects, main effects of on mental health by Mushtaq Bilal. I don't want to do this because that would be cheating. I have not written this literature review or this overview. Yeah, I generated it with the help of an AI app. I cannot pass it on as my own. That would be cheating. And this is something that a lot of colleagues or students especially think that, this is a good use case for using AI. That's a very, very bad use case. You should not do this. You should spend your time to learn the skill of writing. Okay, let's go back to SciSpace. What SciSpace One more feature that SciSpace offers us, and this takes a little bit of time, so we are going to run this and then move on to other things. This is called deep search. Deep search. If we enable deep search and if we run this question, how does social media impact mental health? If we run this question and if we ask SciSpace to do a deep search, what SciSpace will do is it will take this question and then it will ask us clarifying questions. Here you go. So it has asked us a bunch of 4 clarifying questions. So starting deep review, research on social media's impact on mental health. Since you've requested a deep review, I'll ask some clarifying questions. So which demographic focus interests you most? Teenagers, young adults, working professionals? What type of mental health outcomes are you most concerned with? depression, anxiety, self esteem, so on and so forth. Are you looking for specific types of social media platforms? Very good question. What's your primary goal with this research? Yeah, academic literature review, policy recommendations. So it will ask you clarifying questions so that it can give you a very tailored and specific answer to your question. So let's see if we run this question. If we say that I am interested in looking up how social media platforms like Twitter, Twitter impact mental health of academics who use it regularly. Yeah. So my goal is to prepare a proposal, a grant proposal. So I've answered almost all the questions. And then if I click here, what it will do is it will take my input and then start looking up literature relevant to this question. Yeah. I'll conduct a comprehensive deep review focusing specifically on Twitter and similar social media platforms, so on and so forth. Now, this step or this deep search will take can take anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll leave it running here and then we'll come back to it. It has already found 90 relevant papers and it is enhancing the search results and so on. It will do multi-step processes um, on its own, totally on its own. We don't have to, do anything here. So we'll come back to this. Let me close some tabs that we don't need. Okay. So let's go to SciSpace here. So SciSpace is so deep search. We've run this deep search, and now another feature that I would like to share with you is this literature review. If we look up literature review, again, it will give you standard, high quality, and deep review. Deep review will, again, it will take a bit of time. So let's run a high quality review. Let's run this oh wow, high quality review. How do older people self manage lower back pain? If I run this, try searching for, it is going to suggest a few questions that are a little refined versions of my question. So what role does health literacy play in the self-management of lower back pain among older adults, and how can it be improved? This is a great question. How does the presence of comorbidities influence self-management practices, and so on and so forth? So how about we run this question, a literature review on this question. So it is going to look up available literature in several, you can see several databases, Google Scholar, PubMed, um, preprints on archive. And then what it will do is it will give us a consolidated answer, which will be a summary or synthesis of top 10 papers, top 10 relevant papers. Here you can see this. If I go read more. So you can see here that it's a very detailed question, detailed answer to my question. And plus, what it has done is it has given me this table of relevant papers. Now, this is a very, very different kind of interaction compared to something like, say, if I run this question in PubMed. If I run this question in PubMed, what will happen is, let's run this question. Illness of lower back pain. PubMed will only give me this list of results, and that's about it. But what SciSpace does is it compiles or it synthesizes it synthesizes available information from top 10 relevant papers, and then it gives me a list of these papers as well. So this is a list of the papers that are relevant and cited. So Along with this list is in the form of a table. And in the table, in the next column of the table, you see insights. So these are short little summaries of the paper. Mostly the paper's abstract. So this is very useful. But what I can also do is I can, in here, there are a bunch of options to add columns to this table. So there are suggested columns, TLDR, conclusion, we already have insight, so maybe we don't need TLDR. Summarize abstract, we don't need, but maybe we want to learn about, or we want to see what kind of methods have been used. So all we need to do is click here, methods used, and what it will do is SciSpace will create a new column, and it will tell you the methods used in every paper that it is showing you. Yeah, this feature alone will save you so much time while looking up relevant literature. Then you can also add a bunch of other columns: objectives, practical implications, limitations. Here you go. So limitations column would be added in a matter of like 30 seconds. Then you can also say that, Mushtaq, there are, these columns are already made. These are ready-made columns or pre-made columns. I want to have a column of my own. So what I can do is create new column, and then I can write here something like, say, older women. I want to see which paper discusses older women. If I create this column, it will generate relevant information relevant to older women in every column, in every paper. This feature alone saves you a lot of time, can save you a lot of time if you use it smartly. Yeah. So this table, I think this is a really great tool, or a really great way of interacting with already published literature. So let's say you're conducting your literature review and you have looked up a few useful papers and you find some things that are interesting. So what you can do is, now you want to take notes. Yeah, you can of course open up a Word document and start taking, start copying and pasting here. You can copy this and paste it in your Word document. That's totally fine. But you can make this process even more efficient. If you click on this Save to Notebook, SciSpace has this AI assistant as a writer. So there is this notebook. I'll title this notebook Lower Back Pain Project. And now I have this. This was copied and pasted in here. Okay, so let me do this. Save to notebook. Here you go. Yeah, okay. So now I have this information easily available and noted down here. And similarly, I can do this with multiple tabs or multiple chunks. So whatever I find useful, I can simply take notes in my AI writer to my left. Very helpful, very useful, saves you a lot of time and keeps everything very organized. And since it is cloud-based, you won't have to save it, and there is no danger of losing your work in case your computer crashes. You can always get a new computer, sign into your SciSpace account, and all of your work would be saved there, available. Yeah. Then you can also, I think there is this option of chatting with PDFs. So if you click on chat with PDF, you can upload a PDF and then you can have a chat with it. Let me see if I can look up, sorry, any PDFs that are easily available, readily. There should be some available. Yeah, here you go. So I've uploaded this PDF here, and now it's asking me select a collection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, or maybe I'm going to create a new folder. New folder's name, genre communities, and I'm going to create this folder here and upload. So now my paper would be uploaded in this folder, and now I can ask questions about this paper, or I can do this also. I can select this. and ask it to explain. Select this, explain text simply, and it will explain the text to me. I think this is one of the oldest features in SciSpace that at least I have been using since December of 2022 or maybe January of 2023. This is one of the oldest features and I think they've really polished it. Deepak, you guys have really polished it up. Very nice. And then you can also ask questions, or you can, this paper doesn't have any tables or math. You can click here, explain math and table, select the table, and it will explain that. It won't explain this because this is a text. Maybe we can do this if we have time. And then you can also ask questions here. Okay, what is the idea of, sorry, I'm clicking many things. Idea of genre communities. I can simply ask a simple question, and you can have a chat, or you can have an interaction with published literature in a very organized manner. It also has this function of creating a podcast, just like Notebook LM. So click here, and then it will generate this podcast for you. I find this feature quite helpful of generating podcasts, because if I'm commuting, if I'm on the tram, or if I'm on the bus, I can generate a podcast of a paper and I can listen to it on the go. I can't concentrate. I'm unable to have my 100% concentration to read a paper while I'm commuting, but at least I can listen to it. So that's a very useful way of interacting with published literature. So let's get back to our search, the deep search that we had run. So the deep search is done. You can see here the deep search is now done. So it undertook several steps. You can see here, it looked up deep search completed. It looked up this search. It ran this search, then multiple searches, looked up relevant papers, and then gave us this write up. Key findings for academics. You can see here it has cited this study, and then here it is in Ugandan universities, large scale sentiment patterns, very useful mechanisms and pathways, so on and so forth. This is, you can see, this is a little more detailed than a usual standard or high quality search. And then at the end of it, you have a list of references so that you can see for yourself if these papers are real or not. Yeah. It's not doing the work for you, but it will help you do the work in a much more efficient manner. Okay. So the agent, if you run here, one thing that you may want to, mm, you know, I should mention here, you can scroll down and you can see that these are the tasks, or these are the ideas that you can, these are the things that you can do. So you can ask SciSpace Agent to look through grants.gov. So this is the US government's website, and you can look up this website and tell me if my project, which grants should I apply for my next project on self-management of lower back pain in older people, or so on and so forth. So you can do that. Then you have clinicaltrials.gov. You can look up clinical trials. You don't have to go to clinicaltrials.gov to run a search there. You can do it here. And then you can click on show more here, and show more. So there are a lot of options that you can use. You can also run something like look up papers on Hans Christian Andersen. This is my own area, so I'm very confident about it. Hans Christian Andersen, fairy tales in colonial tales in colonial India. Only look up in the Journal of World Literature. So you can specify if you want to. You can tell it to look through a specific journal and filter out your results. Let's see if it follows my instruction or not. Okay, wonderful. So you can see here, I've asked this question to look up these papers in the Journal of World Literature, and the first paper is my own paper, which is in the Journal of World Literature. So very nice. I don't know about this, but let's see if this is a Journal of World Literature paper. Let's see. Let's see. I don't think this is a Journal of World Literature's paper, but anyways. But it is no, it is not from the Journal of World Literature, but it's from the same publisher. Yeah, it's not. It's looking up all the relevant papers, which is not a bad thing. But I think the filter may not be working the way we we would want it to. Anyways, so this is something that we can do with, let me go back to SciSpace. So just to recap, what we can do is we can run semantic searches. We can interact with published literature in the form of a table, and it can extract relevant data based on our options. And there are also, you can also create columns using the options that are already available. You can run deep searches. Deep searches are more detailed, a little more detailed than ordinary searches, and it will always give you a narrative, an answer in narrative prose with references to published research, and you can look up those papers that it cites. You can simply click on it, and it will give you the title of the paper and the abstract of the paper, and the libkey integration that they recently launched. SciSpace folks recently launched that will integrate with your university's library and will give you the PDFs of paywall articles, which is very cool. And then you can take notes, and with the help of AI writers, copy and paste them with a single click. You don't have to do manual copy and pasting. You can simply click on that save to notebook, and it will do the needful. And I think we are approaching the end of the session. So here are the discount codes. Okay, so if you're interested in purchasing subscription for SciSpace, you will be able to get, this is a lot of discount. Oh my goodness. This is a huge discount actually. So you can use these two codes. If you are in India, you will be able to get 35% off with the code MB35. And if you are outside of India, in any other country, then you will be able to get a 45% discount. Oh, goodness. And the code is MB45.